morning, you Hornets. Welcome to Sacramento State. Here's where I started my journey.
Here is where I found my home.
Here is where I felt welcome.
Here is where I found my career path.
Here is where I found my home away from home.
Here is where I learned how to adult.
Here is where I felt accepted.
Here is where I found my passion.
Here is where I declared my major and then changed it.
Here is where I got coffee from my favorite coffee shop.
Here is where I failed my first test, but I learned from it.
Here is where I had unforgettable experiences.
Here is where I made friends.
Here is where I go for physical, mental, and emotional health.
Here's where I go for emergency food assistance.
Here is where I found out about Greek life.
Here's where I discovered that learning can happen outside of the classroom.
Here is where I became a Hornet.
Here is where I became a Hornet.
Here is where I became a Hornet.
Aquí es donde me convertí en un avispón.
Here is where we became the Hornet family.